I started remote viewing her body and I found the grandfather's soul and I removed it. This grandfather had died before she was born. He died from alcohol poisoning because he was a severe alcoholic. And he didn't want to die. He was angry that he died. He wanted to keep living. So instead of going back home to the higher realms, he inhabited this granddaughter's body from when she was an infant.
It's interesting that you put it like that. History doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it sure rhymes. And I didn't even really actually study it until you said it. Like, if they were trying to bring a false Merkaba to bring in their god or entity that's promised them sort of like godhood, kind of we're doing that now with artificial intelligence.
I was literally ordered to get paper and pen. And so I started writing down these angel messages. And this is about 20 years ago. And they said that, one, the world is going to become a very dark place and that humanity needs to know how to use angels now more than ever.
In your home, there was a hat man in the corner. You call him a sentinel who watches and reports. Reports to whom? Hey Conscious Man 7 family, quick question before we start. Do you love the depth of these conversations but hate when ads break the flow? I get it. Ads can feel like speed bumps on a highway, pulling you out of that deep zone. That's why we created a way for you to enjoy every episode completely ad-free while supporting the show at the same time. For just a few bucks a month on Patreon or Locals, you'll get full access to uninterrupted episodes. You'll get direct access to me so you can ask me any questions that you have, some cool other perks like early releases, and you'll also help us keep bringing you the powerful conversations that mainstream platforms won't touch. The link is in the show notes. Join us there and be part of this movement. Ever look up and see those dull, grey skies streaked with chemtrails and you feel your energy sink? You're not imagining it. Something in you knows the sky isn't supposed to look that way. But what if you could bring back the blue? What if there was a way to clear the air inside you and above you? That's where the Chembo comes in. They create powerful orgonite, tools that generate orgone energy, the life force that helps neutralize EMFs from your mobile phone, your Wi-Fi, and even 5G. It's nature's way of restoring balance, bringing cleaner air, calmer energy, and deeper sleep. Every piece from the Chembo is handmade, from tactical tower busters to beautiful pyramids and jewelry, crafted with the precise ingredients to generate real orgone energy. And here's the best part. They've proven it. For over 10 years, they've cleared thousands of miles of chemtrails, bringing the blue back to the skies around the world. So if you're ready to take back your weather and your well-being, go to thechembo.com. Use coupon code CM7 for 10% off and experience the shift for yourself. Don't fear the chemtrails or the EMF. Be empowered with the Chembo and never feel helpless again. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and it will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned because we have some more great content coming soon. What if the very thoughts you call your own were never yours to begin with? Hello friends, welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host Todd Cave, and today I am joined by Laura Van Tyne. Laura was a middle school teacher in Southern California, married, 3 young daughters, the ordinary life, and then her home turned into a horror film that didn't roll the credits for 10 years. Shadow figures, a hat man in the corner, and her 6-year-old daughter the target of something they could feel but couldn't see. For years, she was furious with God for letting it happen. Then she understood it was her training ground. Today, she's a psychic healer, a remote viewer, a certified past life regressionist, and the author of Battle with the Dark Side. And what she does now is remove the unseen things that hijack people's lives. In this conversation, we go into how these forces steal your free will, what she remembers from Lemuria and Atlantis, the truth hidden inside the black cube, and how a person takes their sovereignty back for good.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You gotta be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix, because there's so many levels and layers to it, Laura, welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. How are you today?
I'm lovely. Great to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I am really excited to talk to you today because, as we were saying off camera, there's so much to you. And I was just blown away, the amount of material that you have online and about your story and what you do. And some of it, I think, is going to blow people's minds because you're almost really an exorcist, to be fair.
Yeah.
Is that a fair comment?
That's a fair
description?
assessment. When the Catholic Church calls you and asks you for help, you got something.
So they call you and ask you for help?
At 2 different churches, yeah.
Wow, that is levels.
Last year, both were last year. Yeah, one was in Canada and one was on the East Coast of the United States.
Oh my goodness. Okay, this is even setting the conversation even better. So you went from teacher to exorcist. Before any of this, you were a middle school teacher with 3 daughters and a normal Southern California life. What was the single moment you realized your home had become something out of a horror film?
Oof. It started out with one of our daughters being able to see a lot of things, things that weren't physical to all of us. And as a child, I was pretty psychic also. And my parents they did the best they could. They're like, okay, don't be weird. Don't talk about this. Don't do that. And so it kind of shut down in me, right? And I'm like, okay. And then I realized that in a sense was that my guides keeping me safe back then, right? And then when my daughter started seeing and sensing these things, she thought everybody could see and sense them. She's 4 years old, 6 years old, and she's just assuming that everybody can hear, Grandpa Russ's footsteps in the house, even though he died the year before. And then it started escalating. And she would talk about the shadow men in her bedroom and what they were saying. She would talk about all of these other elements that weren't quite normal or benign, and it had me on high alert. I knew we had to do something, and it ramped up in our house so fast overnight. And I wasn't dabbling anything. I just wanted to be a teacher, retire, get a pension, all those middle-class Americana things. And I had to stop teaching because the problem grew so big and so horrific.
Wow. So you had to stop teaching because of the issues going on in your house and your daughter seeing the Hat Man.
The Hat Man was one of them. I didn't know what it was called then. Again, this is almost 20 years ago. We had reptilians roaming around in the house. I didn't know what they were. They were the crocodile people. That's what we called them. We had all kinds of ghosts. We had the ghosts were plentiful. We had, lower realm entities, these long, shadowy, wispy things. And after a while, I could start seeing them as well with my daughter. So I knew she wasn't making it up. And so in this intangible world, the paranormal world, having a second set of eyes on something is so validating. Because how do you know you're not making it up, right? How do you know you're not seeing or sensing something? But when you get somebody else saying similar things, not maybe exactly, but similar, you've got 2 touch points, and that's huge.
Okay, so you've said your daughter was around 6 years old. She became the primary target. What was happening to her that no parent should ever have to witness?
All right. Well, parents, the concept of imaginary friends may not be so imaginary. All right. There was a lot of ghost children in our house. It was a resonance issue. That was one element. The other element was that one of these ghost children, I talk about it in the book, Battle with the Dark Side, My Journey from Teacher to Exorcist. We had a ghost child who didn't know she died, and she was always crying and looking for her mommy and daddy, couldn't find them. And she'd been living with us for 1.5 years. And at some point, I literally asked her the question, I'm like, you know you died, right? And then the minute I did that, this despair, this rage, everything kicked in with this ghost child. And I didn't know how to cross them over at the time. So I'm learning all of this stuff. I mean, to this day, I've never touched a tarot card. This was not my area of interest, okay? It is now. And so this ghost child starts stabbing my kid in the middle of her back every night. She would take my daughter would take a shower, and she would come out with these 3 little welt marks in the center of her back, somewhere where we can't do that ourselves. There are these welt marks, and the ghost child was named Annabelle, not related to the movie, and well before the movie, would stab her with this etheric knife every time she got in the shower. It's to the point where I would sit in the bathroom on the floor with her, trying to do something. But how do you discipline a ghost child, right? So it's not like you can put them in timeout. I didn't know what to do with them. I'm a school teacher. I know how to handle kids. I don't know how to handle this. And we had, this 3-headed crocodile roaming around the house. And I knew it was there because the animals, we had cats and dogs and a pet rabbit and stuff, would sense it and panic when it was around. It's just crazy stuff. And then my defining moment was this. In the middle of the night, and by the way, I'm not sleeping at all. Nobody's sleeping in our house. In the middle of the night, our daughter comes racing down the hallway, jumps into bed with us, and just comes in, and she whispers really loudly in my ear. And she goes, Mommy, the shadow men are in my room, and they said they're going to steal my soul to break you. Came out of my 6-year-old's mouth.
That is levels. So your 6-year-old daughter, for sure that can't be made up, because at 6 years old, I don't think she has the concept of stealing souls.
No, that's what she heard in her room from the shadow men. They were going to steal her soul to break me. So
you were the target, but they were going through her to get to you.
Exactly. And I thought, what? Why me, right? And so I learned in that moment some huge lessons about fear. Fear in small doses keeps us safe. Oh, don't turn left. Wait a moment. Fear in large doses, if we allow it, can be paralyzing. So from that moment forward, every day, I had to step past paralyzing fear and put one foot in front of the other to try to figure out how to solve my family's problem. I didn't sleep for years because I was afraid if I fell asleep, what would happen to my little girl? If I fell asleep, would they harm her in some way that it's unimaginable? And so I would go to bed with her in her room at night. I would sleep with one eye open. And I also ended up justifying that 2 hours of consecutive sleep in a 24-hour period was enough. And I would sleep after the girls went to school for 2 hours. And then I have to be a normal person, and I have to do all the normal mom things and the work things and those things. And that went on for years because I was afraid if I fell asleep, would they take my daughter's soul? I don't even know how they could do that back then. It was such a foreign concept to me, but it instilled the fear of God in me. And then I just started getting so angry with God. It's like, where are you, God? What the heck, God? We're just living this life. We're good people, God. What the heck? And I was in that place for a long, long time. what happened was that dark side that night got greedy. If they would have been picking on me and left my kids alone, I don't think I would have fought as hard. They got greedy and they went after my kid. Gloves off, game over. We're done. And that's kind of how I got started. And that was close to a 10-year process of trying to liberate my family from all of this myriad of dark entities. And, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, search engines, Google, they weren't what they are today. This disclosure movement wasn't what it is today. For me to have been talking about this 3-headed crocodile roaming around in my house 10, 20 years ago, people would have thought I was batshit crazy.
Or acid or something.
Yeah. And I was at risk of having my children taken away, right? By
True.
Child Protective Services.
Yeah.
She's not stable. Forget that she's got a master's in education as a credentialed teacher. She's not mentally stable. But this was our reality. It was not uncommon for us to be making dinner and watch a plate fly off the countertop and crash onto the porcelain tile.
So just like is on the table and it just like moves like that?
Yep.
Woo.
Yeah. My husband and I could not ever hire a babysitter to go out for dinner. Forget about a weekend getaway, right? We're not going to leave anybody with that. The kids are wonderful. The kids are well behaved, but we can't go out for dinner by ourselves.
Wow.
What's the babysitter going to think when, someone starts talking about, the hat man in the corner or watching a plate fly off the countertop?
They think your house is haunted.
Uh-huh.
So for years, you said you were angry at God for letting it happen. What was the moment that anger flipped into, this is my training ground?
It was about 10, 12 years ago that happened, because I was always struggling, always fighting. And as soon as I learned one tool or tactic to remove some reptilians, the next time it wouldn't work. And so what I learned along the way is that, and this is not just for me, but for everybody, we have to grow and build our spiritual tool belt. What are these spiritual tools that we can use to keep ourselves spiritually in alignment with the greater good? What are the spiritual tools that we can use to protect ourselves? If I live in Canada, I'm not going to go out to the grocery store in a pair of shorts in December, right? I've got layers of clothing on. So we have layers of protection that we can place upon ourselves spiritually. It's that same concept, but in a different realm, different dimension. So I would get very angry with God. I mean, I was in my living room one night trying to remove all of these things coming in. We have a fireplace in our house, and I'm watching this portal open up before my eyes in my living room, and these entities are just flooding in. Like, if these were physical people, we'd be in a fire code violation. Our house was so crowded. And they are literally fighting with each other, trying to fight with me. I'm getting literally beaten up. I'm getting bruises. I'm getting bite marks on me, the whole shebang. And I'm just so angry. It's like, why the F isn't God here? Why isn't God helping? And I didn't understand it then. And it wasn't until the dust settled, again, a decade or so later, because this was intense, I realized, wait a minute, the dark side back then saw my potential future. They saw a potential future in me that I never saw for myself. When my little girl came racing into the bedroom saying, the Shadow Man, we're going to steal her soul. The light side also knew my potential future, but I was oblivious. So I had to learn how to fight, and I had to learn how spiritual laws worked. I had to learn all of these elements, and the light side allowed it to happen so I can do this work I do today. About 5 or 6 years ago, I had a choice. Do I go back to teaching in the public school district, or do I do this full time? Because clearly we're not the only ones being impacted by these negative entities. And so this is what I do literally full time.
Wow. 10 years, that that must have been absolutely heartbreaking, terrifying, stressful, like, you know what I mean, not sleeping, like that must have been like living in hell.
Well, and I teach in the girls' school district. I'm a teacher. I have rather affluent businessmen who want me to run for student or for the school board. I've got people wanting me to help them with their political campaigns. So I'm a big fish in a little pond on top of it. And I have this secret. I remember, and I was like parent teacher association, something or other. I don't remember what it was. And it was the opening night for school and I had to give a speech. And somebody's like, oh my God, my son made this all-star soccer team and we're so excited. And literally all I could think of is, oh, that's just great. Your kid's smart, good looking and athletic. And mine is exhausted, sees dead people and can't even get out of bed. I mean, that's what I was dealing with because at that time, nobody knew this family secret. There's no way anybody could learn of this family secret. It was that horrific.
Especially back then, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it took an 18-month search and a chance dinner party with Mark to finally find help. For the parent listening who feels that alone right now, where do they begin? Parent or no, if you're a parent or not, it doesn't matter. But there is this exquisite loneliness when you're dealing with these battles from the dark side, when you're dealing with these spiritual aspects and you don't have anybody you can fully confide in. It is probably the loneliest place somebody can be, period. And you got to work on finding your tribe, your soul tribe. You got to work on finding like-minded people. And that's part of what I do also is I try to bring people together so we can have these discussions and get to hear each other's stories. And it's like, oh yeah, that was me. I remember I had the same thing. And, I did a retreat last fall and we were talking, I think it was last fall, talking about the Hat Man and 3 people. It's like, oh my God, yeah, I had the Hat Man in my house too. And so when you realize that somebody else has a Hat Man in their house, you're like, maybe I'm not so crazy or so alone, right? So, and the Hat Man is another type of being. The movie, The Adjustment Bureau with Matt Damon in it is a really good example of the Hat Man movie. Or excuse me, the Hat Man. That movie is a good example of the Hat Man. So the Hat Man is an entity, and what he does is he reports to his bosses what is going on in your world. So the Hat Man was stationed like a sentinel in one of our daughter's bedrooms, and it was always watching and observing. I didn't know what it was at the time, and I'm like telling my kids, don't engage, stay away. I don't know how to make it go away, that kind of stuff. What they like to do is they like to create instances and dramas in your life to thwart your free will, to take you off your true path. That's what the Hat Man does. And so the Adjustment Bureau is a perfect example. You can take away the Hollywood sexy because most people can't see the Hat Man, but you'll get the idea of how that works with that movie. So I'm curious. So I have heard people say that, like when you start to become aware that there are spirits and you start to realize that, the universe hears, that you must be careful what you say out loud. So would that infer then, in this case with the Hat Man, that while he's also observing, he's hearing your audible speech? So this is why they say that if you have like plans or you want to do something, that if you're going to speak it, you speak it inside. So you're speaking directly to God because they are not allowed to hear inside of you because they would only be able to hear the audio word. Is there any validity in that, or that's just like made up stuff to make people think that, you shouldn't speak things out loud and stuff like that?
Sometimes it's helpful not to speak things out loud. But there are entities that can hear our thoughts also.
Interesting. So we have no privacy even if we are thinking to ourselves.
Sometimes no. Yeah. A couple of years ago, I was helping a friend of mine whose mother died, and she says, "Hey, can you help me cross over my mom? She just died." Absolutely. So mom, daughter, and grandma lived in the same house. And we crossed over grandma, and the granddaughter and the grandma were especially close. And the granddaughter, we crossed over grandma, and the granddaughter came up to her mom about 2 weeks later and says, "Oh, grandma's been telling me all these things. I'm going to have this boyfriend. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that." And, my friend's like, "Laura, what the heck? And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't think that's grandma though." And so long story short, the kid had created a Ouija board out of a piece of paper. And she and her girlfriend were trying to get answers from her grandma. Okay. The light side doesn't need us to use a Ouija board to get any kind of answers. Okay. The light side will not interact with us that way. So they are getting all these answers from grandma, and my friend was rightfully alarmed. And I said, "Well, let me come on down. Let me come over." So we come down, and I literally put a containment field. It's an etheric, energetic, spiritual containment field. It's one of the processes I use in their living room. And I'm talking to the granddaughter, and I said, "Okay, so what's going on?" "Well, my friend and I created this Ouija board. Now grandma's, helping me, and she's telling me, literally like answers on the test or whatever, that kind of stuff too." And I'm like, "Oh, that's really interesting. Well, I'd love to meet your grandma. I'm so impressed with your grandma." And so literally I have this containment field. I'm like, "Ask your grandma to come into this circle right here." And both mom and granddaughter are very psychic also. And grandma comes in, and I'm like kind of shining on grandma a little bit. "Oh, wow. You're so impressive." And then I did something. Talk about spiritual tool belt. Here's a spiritual tool everybody can use to help to discern if you're dealing with a light being or something negative. Salt cleanses in all dimensions. So if you can visualize yourself pouring salt on an entity or a heavy energy or just around you, whatever is there is going to get cleaned and cleared. So I literally visualized myself pouring salt on grandma. Grandma instantaneously turned into this giant reptilian.
Ooh.
Yeah, right in front of them. And, the kid pretty much like jumped behind the sofa, right? And everybody was like, "Whoa."
Wow.
Yeah. So this is how they can shapeshift. And it was reading her thoughts. And the problem is that you allow one of these reptilians, even though it's in disguise, right? It's pretending to be grandma. So you want to bring it into your house, right? It's grandma, of course. But it was a shapeshifter in disguise. It's no different than like a pedophile priest or, the soccer coach who was more interested in soccer, more interested in things other than soccer. So I was able to send it off, but had this girl been continuing to communicate with grandma for even longer, it would have brought in more reptilians. They would have created health problems, wealth problems for the family, all sorts of things, because their job is to disrupt us. And so we removed the reptilian, and I'm pretty sure she never touched a Ouija board or made another one again.
Wow.
Yeah.
I tell you what, we've not even gone full in, and you've just like blown my mind. I know about these things, but to actually talk to someone that has dealt with them is an actual first for me. So let's go another level deeper. Let's talk about how entities actually control human beings. So you draw a hard line between an earthbound ghost and a non-human dark entity. What's the difference most people get completely wrong?
That ghosts should be here. Maybe if you're a jerk in life, you're a jerk in death, you shouldn't go to heaven. You had unfinished business to do. It was a child that died. When the child died, it was not the natural order of things. There's a lot of pre-programmed beliefs we have about ghosts. So a ghost is simply a former human. These bodies that we're in are rental units. They house the soul. The soul that animates this body, that is eternal. The body is not eternal. Now, the better we take care of this body, this rental unit, the bigger deposit we get back when we leave the body, right? And so we want to take care of these bodies because they work for us. And so a ghost is a person who's left the physical body and is literally stuck between heaven and earth. And we need to cross over every single ghost. I don't care how evil that person was, because what happens is if they are left to languish in that fourth dimension, that astral plane, that space between heaven and earth, they negatively impact us also. Or if they're a beloved grandma and they're stuck, then they're not allowed any soul evolution. They are stuck. We need to cross them over into the higher realms. And we can quote certain holy texts. You know, I use the Bible just because I think it's the most well-known and easiest. Is, lo, behold, I shall walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I shall fear no evil. Well, what's evil? Well, that lower astral plane has a lot of evil in it. They will actually soul nap ghost energies. I have seen that time and time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question. So you're saying that I understand the astral is the fourth, which would be, I think, what some people will classify as hell, because it's like a transition point between the third and the fifth. So the fifth is supposed to be where we would get a higher level of consciousness. And the fourth is the astral plane, which is what some people describe as hell, but it's not really hell. It's just a transition point before you go, right? So you're saying then that there are entities that would, souls that are trapped or stuck or maybe overstaying their time in that plane, they get their souls napped. So then now there are entities then that are at I guess you would say a lower level, or a higher level in the lower field where they have more power and control and can do things to be able to steal the soul so that that soul doesn't come back again to reincarnate, to learn more and then be on their journey. Is my understanding correct?
Yes. I'm going to explain it the same way, but with a little bit more broad terms.
Okay.
And I'm going to use bucket terms. Okay. When the Luciferic forces left the light of God, they could be gray aliens, they could be fallen angels, whatever they are. When they left the light of God, they also left behind a perpetual source of energy. When that happened, they're like, oh, snap, we need an energy source. So they're looking for energy. Us humans are God's source energy. So we live in the third dimension. The time, the physicality, the gravity, the space we have here, all this is the third dimension right here. We live in the third dimension to have these experiences as a human for soul growth, ideally. When we leave the body, we're supposed to have used that fourth dimension as a step up transformer to get to the fifth dimension and higher. When the Luciferic forces left the light of God, they hijacked that fourth dimension. It's called the lower astral, hells, limbo, it has many names for it. When they left the light of God, that's where they landed, because they realized that they can extract our energies as living people and even as dead, or the soul energy. And this is where I have a problem with the light side. It's like, why the heck did you allow this to happen for so long? Seriously, what was wrong? What was wrong with you guys? Okay. And now they've sort of overpopulated, and this planet has had a lot of turmoil in it. To me, it's the most beautiful planet out there. If we look at the solar system, all the planets, this one is the bomb. This one is definitely the best looking with the most resources, I think, on it. And we need to understand that this unseen energetic world does in fact impact us. Once we understand that it impacts us, we now have the ability to take control over our soul's sovereignty.
Okay. So basically, the whole modus operandi of these Luciferian dark forces is they are just looking for survival. So they're stealing energy in however form they can. So I guess you can say they're just being opportunistic then.
Yeah, parasites.
Okay. But the thing is, I sort of share the same view of yours. Like, and I've sat down with this question all the time. Okay, I do understand that Source is all loving, all knowing, ineffable, omnipresent. That for me is without question. But why for so long allow this system to go on for so long? Because it is almost like if, like, I feel sometimes like if we were forgotten, like, you know what I mean, just that part of the galaxies. Oh, shucks. Oh yeah, man, we got this problem over there now and we need to sort it out. This is how it feels like to me, because like I'm just seeing a degradation of our society, our morals, our values, even the intelligence of people. It feels like people are becoming dumber and dumber every year. And I'm like, well, I ask myself, why? Why is this going on for so long? Or is it that maybe this is just all part of it because Source wanted to see how far he could detach himself from himself to learn enough to see, okay, because I got this story, I think is John Volo Melchizedek. And he said that it's called the Luciferian experiment, where Source wanted to find out what would happen, because Source divided itself into millions and billions of fractals. It was like, you know what would happen if I separate myself from myself and I'm in total separation? I would like to understand how this would turn out. And it feels like if it just like went out of control.
Yeah.
And like, it's only like now that we are getting an inclination that we have a possibility to come back, because I'm seeing I'm meeting people like you. Like when I first discovered the information that I know 9 years ago, there weren't people really talking about this, and they were just like tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists that people was just saying are on acid. So I come back to the same place like you, but why for so long? Because even to this morning, I was saying, but you know, as a species, we just kill each other. We just hate each other. Yeah. There's like, what's the point of it? You know, when there's so much potential for love and abundance here, and this place could be heaven on earth. And I'm like, but why?
I think this is a whole nother topic, but I just kind of want to touch on them. I think it stems from the Lyran Wars, these galactic wars that took place eons ago. And we have, or something, not we, but there has been allowed these entities that are purely consumption entities now. And we see it with, I'm going to say the hive-minded extraterrestrials, for example, the hive-minded ones, those that, and think of, Star Trek Borg. Okay, that's a great example of the hive mind. So the Archons are hive-minded, the Greys are hive-minded, the reptilians are hive-minded, which means they have one basically central processing unit, a CPU, or they have a queen that is in charge, kind of thing. And all the data that they get goes into this one collective consciousness, period. It's just one unit. Whereas you have other light beings like the Arcturians, Andromedans, etc., who are collective consciousness beings. They share their information for the greater good. They don't consume others and other data, but they share it. And this is the epitome of the light and the dark right there. And it starts with these basically extraterrestrials that span way beyond the planet Earth. I think planet Earth is, I want to say, in the Lyran Wars, where the reptilians came in, I think there was like something like 38 or 48 planets that have been destroyed in that process. And, The Milky Way is another planet that used to be. And I think Earth has had a few planetary resets to make sure it wouldn't be destroyed. For some reason, Earth, what sits on this quadrant of the universe, is very valuable. It's an anchor point for the universe, I think, this planet. And so we've got a lot of stuff happening here.
Okay, so you described the forces as parasitic and that they are only here to feed on our energy. Is it just simplistic to say our energy, or is it more to it than just energy? Or there multi-levels to what we would describe as energy?
I think it's multi-levels. There are some that come here just to siphon our energy. So and by the way, everything has a political hierarchy to it, right? We think that when we die, we're done with politics. Wrong. There's politics in the workplace. There's politics in the family life, right? There's politics everywhere. Including the light side has a political hierarchy. Think of angels, right? There's a political hierarchy to angels. Same thing with the dark side. And so when we talk about these different hierarchies, these different levels, absolutely. So we've got, at the most basic level, we have what I would consider lower realm entities. And these are long, shadowy, wispy things that we see flit out of the corner of our eye, for example. Their job is to extract our energies by creating conflict in the home, dumb arguments. You and I are home and we're arguing about like the toothpaste. Who cares, right? Why did I say this? Why am I arguing about this? It's because there's something probably extracting our energy to get us to do that, so they can extract this lower vibrational frequency from us. So then these lower realm entities have to give it to their bosses. And they're always left hungry, but this is their job. If they fail to comply, they get severely punished. So their bosses can be a myriad of different entities. It could be the black magicians, which are these skeletal beings. They could be the Hat Man. They could be reptilians. They could be many different things. So these lower realms operate for many different species. And I'm going to say that I do know these things because what happens is when I work with clients to remove the entities off of them and to clean them up and give them the tools so they stay clean, I always quiz the heck out of them because I want to know. I want to know why the lower realms are acting this way. I want to know why the reptilians. And so I will have, someone from my spiritual team pluck one of these little a-holes out, and I start asking them questions. So I've got all of this data. And in this process, there's two truths and a lie. There's two lies and a truth, but I'm finding common threads. And that's how I know what I know.
Okay, so in your home, there was a hat man in the corner. You call him a sentinel who watches and reports. Reports to whom? Who does he report to?
Exactly. They can report to many different species. They usually they can work for the Greys, they can work for the reptilians. Those are the bigger ones. And they just report to them what's happening. And then based on the intel that they get, they will create other actions and reactions to really lower our vibrational field, to knock us down.
Okay, so we are always being watched. So we are about to worry about massive surveillance in the 3D, and we are having massive surveillance in the unseen.
Already there. Yeah.
So as above, so below. Wow.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so you once pulled a dead grandfather's spirit out of a woman who'd had lifelong addictions she could never explain.
Oh.
So how much of what we call my personality might not actually be ours?
These are forms of inhabitation. Not everybody, most people are not walking around being inhabited by other beings or entities, but possession, schizophrenia, these are all forms of inhabitation. And in this case, it was actually quite fascinating because the woman lovely, lovely woman. And she was telling me her whole life she struggled with addictions. If it could be food, it could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be sex, it could be all kinds of things. She always struggled with addictions. And so she wanted me to help her remove these entities from her. And there were entities around her in her energy field. And I'm like, no, we're just missing something. And then I blurt out, and usually it's as my guides talking through me, tell me about your grandfather. And and I'm like, no, the other grandfather. Well, I don't know him. He died before I was born. And I said, okay. I said, I think he's in your body. Do you ever feel like you're always vying to be in front of your body, to be the person speaking, or there's somebody else trying to speak for you or get you to do things that didn't make sense to you? And she said, all the time. And so I started remote viewing her body, and I found the grandfather's soul, and I removed it. When I say I removed it, my spiritual team and I removed this soul from her body. This grandfather had died before she was born. He died from alcohol poisoning because he was a severe alcoholic. And he didn't want to die. He was angry that he died. He wanted to keep living. So instead of going back home to the higher realms, he inhabited this granddaughter's body from when she was an infant, sometime between an infant and a toddler. And so there was a lot of confusion that she was experiencing in this life. She could never fully get out of these addictions. And within 2 weeks of removing the grandfather and crossing him over, because yeah, he was an SOB, okay? He still needed to go back home to the higher realms. I get this beautiful email from her saying, oh my God, I've never felt so free in my life. The addictions are gone. Life is good. Thank you. Hugely validating.
Wow.
She spent her whole life suffering, and she didn't know why. How would you know, right?
True. Very true. Okay. So when someone keeps hitting the wall, same relationships, same money troubles, you've said it's roughly 50-50 between self-sabotage and an actual entity. How does a person tell which one they're dealing with?
So a lot of our roadblocks can also be past life issues that were never resolved in a past life. Let's say it's a money issue. Maybe in several past lives, you experienced poverty, or maybe in several past lives, you experienced people taking your assets away from you. And in this life, your subconscious self, that little recorder. So let me back up. We have our conscious self, right? This is you and I are talking on a conscious level. Our subconscious self is this aspect of us that I say sits kind of in the gut area of us that records all of our actions, all of our deeds. This is what goes into the Akashic records, the records of our soul. The subconscious self also, keeps our heart beating and stuff like that. So the subconscious is very busy, but also very literal. Zero sense of humor. So don't belittle yourself, because if you belittle yourself, your subconscious is like, oh, yep, you're dumb. Don't do that. And so anyways, the subconscious self. And then we've got our higher self. And I went on this little tangent to explain the question. Now I forgot what the question was, Todd.
Sure, no problem. When someone keeps hitting the wall, same relationships, same money troubles, you've said it's 50-50 between self-sabotage and an actual entity. How does a person tell which one they're dealing with?
There we go. That's why I was talking about the subconscious. So we've got past lives where we have the same roadblocks over and over. And once we learn that maybe in a past life, that roadblock, what that was, it frees us up. And so we can move past the financial blocks or whatever that is. The self-sabotage aspect happens when our subconscious self's thoughts and belief structures are not in alignment with the conscious and higher self. So if you think that, okay, I am going to get this job promotion, and this job promotion, I'm going to be making X amount of money. It's going to be phenomenal, office window, whatever. but your subconscious self and higher self are not in perfect alignment, you're not in resonance, and there's a self-sabotage aspect that will happen. So you have to make sure that you are in alignment to manifest what you want. And this is where self-sabotage happens a lot. And if you keep hitting those same patterns, you got to ask yourself, what part of me feels like I don't deserve this and why? Or could this be a past life shadow that keeps coming forth? It could be several things. And so this is where, when people talk about doing the shadow work, like, clearing some things from yourself, this is an important aspect to our soul growth. It doesn't matter if you can grow past self-sabotage, your soul grows and is healthier. If you can remove past life blockages or blockages that entities are creating, your soul grows healthier also. It's all about soul growth and soul evolution.
Okay, I see. Now I want to talk to you about something that might feel like a gear change. Stay with me. You know what genuinely frustrates me? Watching men who are spiritually switched on, doing the inner work, evolving their consciousness, reading the books, listening to the podcasts, but still completely lost when it comes to what they're putting into their body every single day. Still carrying weight they do not want, still operating below their potential, still letting food control them instead of the other way around. And here is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. An awakened mind living in an undisciplined body is still a divided man. I've seen it too many times, and it bothers me enough to build something about it. So I created the Compound Body Training Custom Meal Plan, a done-for-you 4-week nutrition system built specifically around your body, your biology, your goals, and yes, your favorite foods. This is not a template. This is not a generic diet sheet somebody copy-pasted from the internet. This is your personal nutritional blueprint, designed around you, delivered to you, ready to follow from day one. Because if you want to take a do-it-yourself approach to your health and your sovereignty, this is the most powerful tool you can start with. Just go to compoundbodytraining.com/meal plan. The link is in the description below. Your body should reflect the standard you actually live by. Now here's the thing about that meal plan. It only works if your body can actually absorb what you're putting in it. And that starts in your gut. Most people don't realize their microbiome is the foundation of everything. Energy, focus, mood, recovery. Which is exactly why I want to tell you about Good Brew. Most people walking around right now are dealing with some version of the same problem. Bloating, brain fog, low energy, mood instability, burnout they cannot shake, and they're blaming stress, sleep, their diet, trying everything. But here's what almost nobody is talking about. 90% of your serotonin, the neurotransmitter that controls your mood, your calm, your ability to think clearly, is produced in your gut, not your brain, your gut. So if your microbiome is damaged or depleted, your mental and physical performance suffers every single day, and most people have no idea that's what's happening to them. Good Brew was built exactly to fix that. It's a prebiotic and probiotic powder. 1 scoop into your morning coffee, tea, or oatmeal, delivering 1 billion active live cultures per serving, plus 3.5 grams of soluble prebiotic fiber to rebuild and feed your gut microbiome from the ground up. And the probiotic strain they use, BC30, survives 10 times more effectively than standard yogurt cultures. That means it actually reaches your gut and gets to work. No sugar, no gluten, no dairy, no compromise. This is a clean, clinically grounded product, and it's one I want in the hands of every person in this community. I've been taking it now for a few weeks, and I have had more energy during the day, faster muscle recovery from training, more mental focus, and improved mood and better quality sleep. Go to goodbrew.com/CM7, use code CM7 at the checkout for 10% off, exclusively for this community. Link is in the show notes below. So let's transition to deception and the divine feminine. Now, you teach that an imposter can mimic Yeshua, an angel, even Archangel Michael. So if everyone and their dog claims to be talking to Michael, how do we know we're not being played.
Mm-hmm. So I learned this lesson, I don't want to say the hard way, but I learned this lesson in such a manner that it really sat with me. I'm in my living room one night and I'm watching all these entities roam around my house. I'm trying to keep my family safe. I'm trying to let my husband sleep so he can go to work the next day, let the girls go to school the next day. I'm trying like everything. I'm like throwing spaghetti on a wall all the time, the spiritual wall. And I called him fake Jesus. Fake Yeshua shows up in front of me. And he's telling me that I deserve to go to hell, that I've earned all of this chaos in my house, and I am simply not worthy. And I'm like, wait, what? And at first, I was so shocked. I can't believe he would say that. And then I looked at him from a different angle, and he was pixelating. And his voice became more electronic-y sounding to me. And I thought, wait a minute, this isn't him. And that's when I learned one of the most important lessons of my life. When you're dealing in the paranormal realms and the energetic realms, it doesn't matter if you can see the entities or not. If you want to call in angels to help you, if you want to call in Archangel Michael for whatever reason, you need to vet them. It's no different than if you need to find an attorney, you ask your friends, do you know of a good attorney for this? If you need a plumber, hey, I need a plumber. Do you know of a good plumber? Right? So we vet them. And so this is where I learned about the tool of salt. Salt cleanses in all dimensions. Pouring a rain of salt on them makes them pixelate and pretty much disappear, or it exposes them, the shapeshifter aspect of them. I use a lot of different tools. I will use also frankincense and myrrh. So, when the Christ child was born, the three magi, the three magicians, the three wise men said, hey, buddy, you're going to need some help. And they gifted him frankincense, gold, and myrrh. Okay, gold makes sense. We think it's got a monetary value, right? It's more than that. These are high frequency substances. So they knew the Christ child was in for a wild ride, and he needed some spiritual reinforcements to keep his frequency high on this really dense earth plane. So we have these tools. We have the ability to get frankincense oil or resin. Myrrh, by the way, turbocharges the effectiveness of frankincense. So when you mix the two together, it's like 1 + 1 is 5. And you can visualize yourself. If I'm bringing in Archangel Michael, let's say he's a favorite one we all like to bring in. If I'm bringing in Archangel Michael, I'm going to always vet them. I don't care who, don't even tell me, oh, I just know, vet them. Pour on frankincense oil over him. Feel his energy. Does it shift or does it change? And this is true for anybody on your spiritual team that you want to work with or communicate with. Never trust who you think you're speaking with or dealing with. Never. And the light side is grateful when we have that attitude. So if I'm pouring salt on Archangel Michael and it really is him, great. If I'm pouring salt on Archangel Michael and he pixelates and disappears or shapeshifts, I've dodged a bullet. It wasn't that I wasn't worthy. I've dodged a bullet. And then just try it again.
So this is like their kryptonite to Superman, basically.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So, right, I remember I was talking to someone and they said that the Bible is written with a lot of codes in it. And while the Bible is not a religious book, it's a historical book, but there are a lot of allegories in there that we don't know. You're the first person I've heard about the gold, frankincense, and myrrh being protection, sort of like tools for spirits and stuff. Because like when they go to a ceremony to do psychedelics, whether it's mushrooms, ayahuasca, bufo, even peyote, there's always sage that they cleanse you with. So they literally cleanse you, and the shaman would always cleanse the circle. Mm-hmm. Then they would ask permission to open the portals of light, ask the beings of light to come in, to inhabit the circle, to protect the circle. And then after they do that, then they cleanse your physical body and then you start the ceremony. Now, I didn't, how should I say it? I just thought that was just part of the routine to do, but I never clocked that the burning the sage is one tool for what we do now, but the frankincense and the myrrh was what they were doing, and the gold at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And sage has a different purpose than these other tools. Sage cleanses and clears, right? It's antiseptic, it's antimicrobial also. I remember the stories in that same book, Teacher to Exorcist. I'm so tired. And a friend of mine says, hey, did you try burning some sage to clear out all the entities? And I'm like, what sage other than, a food thing? Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, we'll just go to this metaphysical store. This is how green I am. Go to this metaphysical store and go buy a bundle of sage and just open a door window and burn it and just walk it around. Da, 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 da. I do that. I go there. I get this. And it was a really pretty bundle. And I do this and nothing happens. My reptilians didn't leave. The hat man's still there. 0, 0, 0. And I'm like, oh, I was so disappointed because I thought I was holding the Holy Grail, okay, with the sage. And so then I told her, my friend, I'm like, it didn't work. And she's like, well, did you get white sage? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Is there a difference? And she's like, well, I just harvested a bunch of white sage. I'll give you some bundles. So the next morning she comes over after the kids are at school and husband's off at work. And she's like, okay, these are really powerful. Just burn one at a time. And I'm like, oh, if one's powerful, 12 is like way more powerful, right?
Oh, gosh.
So I open up a door. Again, I am so sleep deprived. I put them in a silver mixing bowl and I light them on fire. Whoosh, I've got this chimney action going up and I've scorched my ceiling. What happens to metal when there's fire in it? It gets really hot.
We're hot. Yeah.
So I drop it, which did not help the situation. And thank God it landed on the table and nothing really spilled out very much. The smoke alarms are going off and I run outside and I douse off the sage and I'm watching all of these entities just laughing their butts off at me. If they had butts, they don't really have butts. They're just laughing at me. And I'm just like, wow, man. But I learned that my problem was way more severe than sage. But in a shaman circle, etc., that is much more appropriate. So people trying to burn sage to remove a dark entity, it's not going to work. Yeah.
Okay. Sage is powerful, and they use copal as well.
It is. The Palo Santo is a good one. Dragon's blood resin is good. There's a copaiba. There's a lot out there. They all have different specialties and frequencies about them and different uses. So we have to learn what is the best resource for me for this moment, for this opportunity or whatever I've got going on.
Okay. So you've called the distortion of the divine feminine one of your biggest pet peeves. What's the difference between real feminine power and the version being sold online?
We need both masculine and feminine, right? It's a balance. It's a yin and a yang. And right now we're in this era of this divine feminine energy. Okay, there's also divine masculine energy, but for some reason now this divine masculine energy is being, poo-pooed and just like whatever. And this divine feminine stuff is coming through. And a lot of it's kind of a load of crap. I mean, I hate to say that. And you know what, people out there, and I say this a lot. Okay, so if women are goddesses, right? What does that make men?
Gods.
Gods, right? So, 49% of the people walking on this planet are gods, okay? But we have to take into balance this divine feminine, divine masculine. These are just energies. And we have to learn how to work with the energies. And my goal is to take the airy out of the fairy, okay? The airy fairy BS drives me nuts because it's a false doctrine that people fall into. And it's like, if love and light and sage really worked, we'd have a much different planet, right? It Absolutely. Does work to a certain degree, but we got to be smart about it. If I'm off on La La Land flitting around talking about the divine feminine energies, I'm not grounded. We got to be grounded. We can talk about these divine feminine energies, but we got to talk about the divine masculine energies. We are a duality, all of us. And the other reality is that we all reincarnate here and onto other planets. We reincarnate sometimes in a male body and sometimes in a female body, because we need both the experiences to have the duality. So the divine feminine stuff that's coming out, I get annoyed with it. I understand that perspective, but I also understand that masculine perspective. We need both. We can't have one without the other.
Absolutely. And I find it, to be honest, a bit misandrous, to be very brutally honest, because what I see online is a lot of people who I can tell now, because of the work I've done, are, I would say, well, there's some people that call it like a mimic consciousness or a mirror consciousness that is not really from source, which is just like a reflection of what source is. And I see that in a lot of these movements. There are some people that are genuine, but I think that the issue is that if that's your only USP, your only shtick, and you have women out there really like pushing the sexual boundaries because it is empowerment, is their divine ability and their divine this and their divine that. I find that, one, all we're getting is more debauchery. Two, what we're getting is a lot of misandry. Three, we're basically relegating the masculine attributes and traits to the side as that they're not valid, they're not needed. And like you said, we actually need both, because if you want to take it to another level, according to the Gnostics, the reason why we have the issue we have now is because Pistis Sophia, which represents wisdom and faith, created Yaldabaoth, not using her male counterpart inside of her. And the child Yaldabaoth came out, and the Gnostics refer to it as retarded because it was lacking certain things to keep it balanced. And Yaldabaoth created this matrix, this 3D world according to them. So this is why we have a lot of polarization. We also have a lot of distortion, and it is leading to just more bifurcation, which is the tactics of divide and conquer that are being used. So just like you, I is one of my pet peeves as well. But the thing is now is that with the internet, when men like to shine a light on things that are truthful, or what I would say put mostly women in an emotional state, they find it very difficult to look at logic and reason and say, maybe I'm actually being led astray here. And they want to call you all the ists and misogynist and racist and all the other anti-feminist and all the other ist words to go along with it. And it is contributing to the imbalance that we have. So now we end up having this sort of like feministic side of feminism being born out of that sort of ideology that is not doing anything for humanity, because we're separating the sexes when both sexes need each other, because masculine energy is more about order, control, structure, and power. And then the feminine energy balances that now with reason, consciousness, and feeling. So you can discern, you can get like the gut feeling like, actually, you know what? At this moment, I need to be a little bit softer now because the hard approach is not worthwhile. But then now, when I need to protect, I flip straight into the masculine. So in fact, both sexes need to have a balance of both the masculine and the feminine. But we don't really have many social media personalities promoting the balance between the two. So on my side, I stick to the masculine side because I think that men have a lot of work to do, but there are few actual female social media personalities that actually try to hold women accountable, because in the manosphere, they say that accountability to women is kryptonite to Superman. So this is that little running joke you have in the manosphere. And I tend to concur with that statement,
I couldn't have said it any better. This divide and conquer stuff is destroying societies. We need the balance. We need to be able to protect. We need to be able to understand all of these elements on such a deeper level. And right now, we're trying to erode the masculine side of humanity. You look around and, I don't want to get political, but you watch in the news about these protests and stuff. It's like, I wouldn't want them fighting for me, right? The blue hairs and this and that. It's like, yeah, the whiny babies. And we need men in our societies. We need men who know how to be men also in our societies. And a real man will protect. A real man will do all of these elements to keep, I'm going to say, his people, the family, the group safe. That's what a real man does. We need this. We also need real women out there who understand this. We need real women who can balance the emotional side, the feeling side of things. We need all of it. And we're in this culture right now, I think it's globally for the most part, where they are trying to erode the masculine side of humanity, where men they take away the man's power to do what they are here to do and experience. And that is quite alarming. We're now getting into this era where, and I follow politics a lot because spirituality is all politics. When you look at the politics of situations, you get to look at things with a discerning eye. I may or may not agree with things, but when I'm looking at, for example, the trades, right now in the United States, we are heavily shortened. We need welders, we need electricians, we need all of these things. And those are typically male-dominated jobs. Women can be in them too, don't get me wrong. But there has been a time where we were told higher education, a 4-year degree, college degree, that's what's important. Nothing else is important. It's the same concept, but the widget's different. We need the balance.
Absolutely. And I say to people that it's not that women can't do these jobs, but I think that women tend to be more inclined to want to do other type of jobs, which are like the social type jobs like nursing, teaching, caring, and that kind of stuff, while men are more like aligned to want to be mechanics and, bus drivers, working in oil fields, welders, electricians, plumbers. It's not that a woman can't do it, but, it's a very interesting. So in a place like Sweden, they have gone very far to the left in terms of equality. It's not even equality, it's egalitarian. And basically, even with that, in promoting women to be welders and working in the field doing hard manual labor, they have the ability to do it because it was promoted heavily, and they still overwhelmingly chose to do the more what we would call social type, because women tend to be more in terms of like familial and social. Women tend to like to be in like groups and stuff. Men, for the most part, we tend to we're happy to just go out there and work on our own and no one bother us, right? Mm-hmm. Is it right? Is it wrong? It's just the way we seem to be. Yeah, it just is, right? And a man can go out there and do work on his own, be on an oil rig, work really, really hard, and you come home and, eat his dinner, have a sleep and go up and do it again. He's not really going to complain, but women don't tend to be attracted to that. And that's okay. So, I think that we should actually be embracing our differences and promoting the differences in the sense that maybe some women are better at some things than men, and maybe men are better at other things than women. There's nothing wrong with that.
And it goes back into some of these, I'm going to call them cultures or subcultures, governmental institutions, whatever it is. They want us to become robots, right? Where we all look and act and think the same. And that's not what humanity is about. We are so diverse. We are so unique. And we have to celebrate that. And, a number of years ago, actually not that long ago, the U.S. military, I don't know if you know this, lowered their standards because they were getting more women in the military. So they lowered their combat standards. Does that sound like a good idea?
Hell no.
I mean, low, right? And then it blew me away. Now these are getting rectified, but they lowered the standards so more women could be in combat. Do you want a weaker woman in combat? No. You're deflating the whole unit.
Yeah. And the thing is, right, is that I think most women, and the thing is, before you make the statement, a lot of people like to talk about the anomalies. So people always like to say, but there are some women that are stronger than men.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. This is a factual statement. There are some women that are stronger than men. But on an average, no. So why are we looking for the anomalies? Why are we looking for the minorities where the world is created off of generalities? And generally speaking, women would not want to go into combat, right?
Yeah.
And I can't remember where I got this from, but I heard someone say that the minute you put women on the front line, all they be done is sent back being pregnant. That's it. Yeah. Right?
Absolutely.
And you basically, you would lose the war because you would just end up having no soldiers, right? Yeah. So, I think that, all of these things are intertwined where you have this divine feminine movement that I think is not coming from a right place. Then you have the feminist movement, you have the egalitarian mindset, you have the feminization of men, and it's all about weakening men, like you said, which ultimately leads to a weaker society. And then we are easily to be controlled. We're easily to be manipulated. We're easily to be sedated, right? So I think that if we want to be totally honest with ourselves, we actually need to stop the divide and conquer agenda, which is also in terms of sex, because we need each other, because, men need women for families, to create families. Women need men to help them create families. So, which one came first, the chicken or the egg? I say both came first. So you need the man and the woman for a continuing of our civilization, And this is the problem that I have, where people don't see that. They're just stuck in their silos and want to be right and don't want to listen to the other side,
Yeah, I agree. And it's not, being a woman, it's not a popular thing to say, but I really don't care. I'm not here to win a popularity contest. It's okay to have differences. It's okay to have differences of opinion, right? It's okay to embrace different philosophies, different thought processes. And as society, there are these, I'm going to call them negative entities, that are working on overtime to separate humanity, to separate us. So we are angry. We're not talking with one another. We're creating these divisions. The first rule of terrorism is a distraction works every time. And the distraction is we are all being bombarded with these conflicting thoughts. And if you don't think like I'm thinking, Todd, then I have to hate you, right? Since when did that become a thing? But
True.
Now it is.
True. So you've been blunt that your own field is full of charlatans with good intentions but no skill. What's the one question someone should ask before hiring any healer?
Okay, if you're going to hire a healer, a spiritual practitioner, a shaman, whatever that is, for whatever your needs are, you need to look at that person. Does that person look healthy? Or do they look like they need another cigarette, right? You know what I mean? Does that person have a sense of vibrancy about them? Is that person chronically in poverty? Is that person, chronic health issues are a big one. All right. And then, look at the person in general, and we can learn a lot about people on the internet, et cetera, and you can get a good feel. if you need to, reach out to that person and ask them a question. One of the biggest questions I challenge people to ask when you're hiring somebody is, how do you clear yourself between clients? It's no different than a doctor washing his hands between patients. I look at these entities and these heavy energies as parasites, okay? I'm not going to transfer my junk onto you. All right. Last week, I was hit really hard. And I had to reschedule some clients because I didn't think I had the stamina or the clarity. And I was afraid I had some attachments on me. So I rescheduled those clients. Yes, they were disappointed, but at the same time, I don't care because the bigger picture is to keep them safe. If I had like this reptilian energy on me and I'm working on you, now it goes on you. And that's not fair. So how do you clear yourself between clients? And I haven't been hit that hard in a very long time. But I also know, never say never. I can get hit or infected or something like that just as much as everybody else can. I'm not infallible. The minute I think I'm infallible, guess what? Right? So we have to remember spiritual hygiene, spiritual cleanliness is a huge deal when hiring these sorts of services, because it's not as physical as, a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever, but even they make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And so there's a lot of charlatans in this field because they're preying upon people who are weak and need help. And that's a crime. That is an absolute crime. There are people out there who think they know what they're doing, but they really don't. So you got to do your homework with who you hire. This is really important. You own your soul. This is you. Nobody's going to fight for your soul more than you will. So ask the questions. Ask your friends. Have you ever hired a psychic? Have you ever done this? Or have you ever looked for that? Ask. And if you're talking to a shaman or a psychic or somebody and you don't like their answers, that's okay. And it's okay to say no. And if they pester you, just run away.
Absolutely. So guys, we're going to take a very quick break here to say, if this is cracking something open for you, take 2 seconds and hit subscribe. This is exactly the kind of conversation the algorithm tries to bury. And if you want these episodes ad-free with direct access to me, come join us on Patreon or Locals. Links are in the description below. Follow us on Instagram at Adriano_246, at The Conscious Man 7, podcast, or Todd Cave on Facebook to see what I get up to during the week and see how I merge fitness, consciousness, and spirituality to help people not only get into the best shape of their lives, but also level up in other areas of their life. Don't forget to check out the sponsor of our show, The Kembo, at thekembo.com to get yourself some cool organite pyramids, tower busters, and jewelry, which create orgone energy, which is the life source energy and neutralizes the nasty EMF waves that we are bombarded constantly with. Use coupon code CM7 to get 10% off your order. Now let's go even deeper with Laura. Now I want to take you somewhere you don't normally go on camera, and I want to talk about what you actually remember. I want to delve into your ancient memory, which is Lemuria and Atlantis. So you've had spontaneous past life recall of Lemuria. You didn't read about, you remembered it. What's the first thing you remember about being there?
So Lemuria is this ancient civilization that was many, many millennia ago. And it's centered in, people say, around the Hawaiian Islands and some other places like that in that general area. And the land masses were definitely different than they are now. And I remember being in a car and watching all of this information just come through a spontaneous past life recall. Most of my past life recalls are spontaneous. It's something gets triggered and just this flood of information comes in at me. And my whole life, I've had no desire to go to Hawaii or any of those places. And everybody's like, oh, have you been to Hawaii? Nope, no desire, don't want to go. And I never knew why. And then I started like thinking, why don't I want to go there? Why, and I started getting this inherent sadness in me about Hawaii. And I'm like grieving Hawaii. And I'm like, this makes no sense. I really don't like that place. I don't want to go there. Okay. And then boom, it's like I'm watching this movie and I'm in Lemuria and I'm in charge of I'm going to call it a larger outpost. And Lemuria then we were, I'm going to say taller, thinner structures, bodies were less dense. So you could they're more opaque in nature. So we look different. Some people claim that they had tails on them too, the Lemurians. But I remember watching this attack come onto Lemuria, and we had no way to defend ourselves. And my job in that instant was to start pulling these Lemurians up into pods or ships so they could get off this planet, because we had no way to defend ourselves. We'd never heard of an attack before. We didn't know what that was. And this was the reptilians coming into this field for the first time. And I'm getting them off. And I'm going to call it a commander that's on a ship that's outside of the Earth's orbit, who we're sending them to. And this commander person is telling me, you need to go. And I'm like, no. And all of a sudden I get this huge shard of crystal, because it's a crystalline energy, Lemuria for the most part, right through my left side. I want to say where my pancreas is. I'm not really sure. And this huge shard goes through me, and I get like literally pulled up and sucked up, and I wake up and I'm on the ship, and I'm like, whoa, this is surreal. And I'm in this healing chamber for a really long time, and they're trying to remove this big crystalline shard out of me. And then I just sort of woke up from that movie, and I was like, whoa, that was trippy, but it made so much sense. And even before that, I was never even interested in Lemuria. I was like, I don't want to know anything about it. There was something there that was so repelling to me. And I know what it is now. It was, I carried this guilt factor for letting Lemuria fall, even though it sounds egotistical because it was beyond my capability, right? But there's this element of me that felt guilty for letting it fall and not getting everybody off. And that was my Lemurian memory. And that's what turned me off to, in this lifetime at least, thinking about the Lemurian concepts and thinking about, that area of the planet. It took me a long time to remove that trauma.
Okay, so you've described Lemuria as almost a vacation planet with no defenses. Was it really that innocent before the fall?
I believe so. I think people were there to learn and study. This was also a vacation planet for other species to come and experience. I don't personally recollect any nefarious movements or anything like that with the Lemurians. It doesn't mean it didn't happen, but this is what my knowledge base is.
Okay, so the way I have heard about it is that it was basically like we were like on the seventh dimension of consciousness, and we had like these etheric bodies that were, you said opaque, but from what I found, they were like translucent, where you could kind of like put your hands through them in a kind of a way.
Yeah.
And that the tails are what actually helped us to be grounded here.
Yes. It's like an antenna, right?
Yeah. And it allowed you to sort of like come in and out, right? So it was like a place where you could come in from the higher level, get the physical experience, but still have like the etheric body, the lightness of being here. And then after we were taken over by the Orion group, then they did like DNA manipulation and instilled a lot of trauma, and then the tails eventually fell off through either cutting off, breeding, or just like trauma, rapes, and all that kind of stuff to force the level of consciousness to drop, right?
Yes. Yes.
So is that similar to what you remember or what you found as well?
I do believe that's true. I believe that's what Lemuria was about, and I believe that's what had happened. There was no defense line. It was beyond. It wasn't part of our consciousness back then. But yeah, everything that you've said, I believe to be true about Lemuria also.
Okay. Some teach that Lemuria was a matriarchal, heart-led society, but given how skeptical you are of the modern divine feminine, does that match what you actually remember?
Well, think about it. We had no defense system, right? That's a masculine trait, right? So was that something that was kind of a crack in the foundation?
That's a good question because I've always wrestled with that question in the sense of like, but if you had such a high level of consciousness, you would be able to understand that you needed to have the balance,
right?
Which is also having the masculine energy, which is protection. So, I mean, we're going into Star Trek territory here, force fields and some sort of galactic missiles or something, you know what I mean? Because at that level of consciousness where you're tapping into hidden energetics, crystals, you're tapping into teleportation and telekinesis and telepathy. I kind of think maybe we're not being told everything about Lemuria or that matriarchal society that they're telling us might not be 100% accurate, because I can't see how a species that high wouldn't have any sort of defense. Because if they're not for attack, but what about defense? You know, like,
right,
invader is coming, right? So I sit on defense because I have more questions than answers for that, you know, a bit like you as well, you know. I wanted to hear your take, you know. Yeah,
I do too. And why was that allowed to happen, right? It goes back to why was it allowed to happen with what I was dealing with 20 years ago in this 3D world? Why is this allowed to happen? And I don't have the answers, but there's definitely an imbalance there. And, you know, when you look at Star Trek, that force field is critical, right? If we had that force field, would there have been that attack? Would this planet look very different if they could have defended themselves in some way?
Very true. So the fall of Lemuria, as you remember it, came from a reptilian attack against the planet that you've never seen before. What made us the target?
I think it's the assets this planet carries. This planet is very, very rich in minerals that are needed. Most of the gold, I believe, was harvested off this planet, along with rhodium and some other things that are needed for the spacecraft, whatever it is. And so I think this planet just has a lot of this form of wealth that these nefarious entities and even the benevolent ones want. And you're frozen, by the way, Todd.
Okay. Am I back now?
No.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm going on my side, so I think you'll kick back in.
Okay.
So, and what was it that finally brought Atlantis down? Because we have a lot more information on Atlantis than Lemuria, but from your memory, what was it that brought us down in Atlantis times?
The corruptions. The corruptions in Atlantis were huge. There were two factions, and they became warring factions, and the corruption and the greed just grew and grew and grew as the technologies grew with the Atlanteans. And they had a chance to get it right once. They failed. They tried again. They failed. These corruptions stem from creating hybrids to weaponry. Greed is, I think, the biggest factor that was the downfall of Atlantis. And this was definitely lower vibrational times on this planet, but it wasn't supposed to be.
Okay, so I have read and heard that one of the things that they did is that they tried to create a synthetic Merkaba. And they were trying to do that because, like you said, with the corruption, they were sort of trying to make themselves gods. And the thought behind it is that there was this entity sort of like that they were going to bring in to our space time. And the synthetic Merkaba was going to do that. And what happened is that the light side saw that this would have been not only catastrophic for Earth, but for the whole galaxy, because it would have brought such an imbalance. And they told them, well, don't do that. And if you do that, then you're going to get wiped out. And they did it. So they were wiped out. From your memories, how accurate is that?
I think that's highly probable, because that synthetic Merkaba is a technology, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And we're facing similar things on this planet now when it comes to AI. It's not much different. We have to be wise with how we utilize technology. We have to be able to use discernment. Is this technology for my greater good or not? It's kind of the same thing, but different times.
You know, right? It's interesting that you put it like that. It's almost like, and this, as the saying goes, history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it sure rhymes. Because, and I didn't even really actually study it until you said it. Like, if they were trying to create a false Merkaba to bring in their god or entity that's promised them sort of like godhood, kind of we're doing that now with artificial intelligence, because what we do know is that all technology given to the public is at least 30 to 40 years behind. Like, I have heard interviews where they talked about in the 60s, they had like these holographic gloves where you had like VR headsets and these gloves, and you could play with holograms, and you had VR in the 60s. I remember I saw an interview with a guy called Dr. Steve Pachenik, who actually says that his job in the CIA was to bring down countries, and he said that the reason why the Soviet Union fell was because of him and his team. Not the only reason, but one of the contributory factors is because they introduced computers into the Soviet Union, and that helped bring down the Soviet Union. And he said that he was trained on social media in the 1970s. And he was told that it would have been rolled out to the public a few decades later. And then we have in the early 2000s, social media started to come out, right? And now, and he was trained on social media in the 70s. So it makes me beg the question, so, okay, if they were trying to bring in an entity and AI now that is given to the public, we know is at least 30 to 40 years behind, the kind of technology for the AI they have could actually be maybe a synthetic god, because we do know that AI with the right power can actually, with the computer power, probably create rifts in the time-space continuum to black holes, wormholes, star gateways, you name it. You know, I mean, portals. I think it's quite possible with the way technology is. So I think you're right. We are on the same trajectory as them, because they had chimeras in those days and centaurs, and we are actually we have chimeras now. You know, so like, especially in China. Yeah. So it's almost like we are probably on the same track now, and you know, if the AI goes rogue, then what next? What then? You know?
And I do believe it will go rogue. But not everybody will fall for it. We really have to also understand that these physical bodies that we're in are built exactly the same way they were in the 1200s and the 1400s and the 1600s. They're not any different. What is changing is the energy waves and the energy signatures on this planet through Wi-Fi, through 5G, through AI, all of this stuff. And we're constantly getting bombarded. how do we protect and shield ourselves from this? That's the key. That keeps our mind, body, and soul healthy. And we have to also understand that AI is here to stay. There's no way to remove it. And we have to use it judiciously and wisely. Don't be asked, especially, I can't stand it when spiritual practitioners use AI to ask spiritual questions. That just kills me.
And there are a lot of social media personalities that I think are all AI taught, I don't think they actually had any experience in the field, overcoming fears and traumas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So we just have to use it wisely, and we have to be patient with ourselves and know when it's appropriate to use it or not use it. We're not getting away from it. It's embedded in our computers and our technologies. It's embedded in our social media, but we just have to be smart about it.
Absolutely. So let's transition to the Saturn code, the black cube, and the old gods. You've described black cubes of Saturn anchored into people's energy fields, quietly siphoning their energy. Where it is all energy where's all this energy actually going? Okay,
so this is something I discovered a few years ago. And what happens is, and I think the Mecca is actually the perfect example to discuss this. Mecca is this giant black cube, and every day you get thousands of people walking around it counterclockwise. I think it's 3 times, right? And
it's 7 times. Quickly. Well, actually, for Hajj, to be very correct, before they come for me, for Hajj, it is 7 times, 2 times very quickly, and 5 times slowly.
Thank you. Okay. I knew I was wrong. So I'm like, So they're programmed to walk around this counterclockwise. So when you want to bring something into manifestation, that is clockwise energy. Time goes on. Okay. When you want to take something out of manifestation, that is counterclockwise energy. You're taking it out of manifestation. So when I'm removing entities or I'm placing them in a containment field, I create a counterclockwise shift in their magnetic field so they will get pulled up. Okay. All right. So now.
Wow, you just sent shivers up my body. And that's how I know when things are true. Like, the resonation was incredible. This made so much sense. Sorry for interrupting. Please carry on.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I could tell there was a moment there I had to pause. So they're walking around. They've been programmed to walk around this cube counterclockwise. What this is telling me is they're taking energy out of manifestation. So where is the energy going? That's the big key. The energy is going to the planet Saturn. Saturn is also known as a prison planet where these dark entities reside. And so that's a whole nother story. But what I have found in people's energy fields, maybe not quite 50% of the time, not all the time, but quite significantly enough, is they would have these, and it's just my term for them. I've never heard anybody else discuss that before. I call them black cubes of Saturn because, and I'll tell you the because at the end of it. So basically, black is a void space. There is no color, right? There is no light frequency in black. It absorbs energy. A cube is an anchor point. If you study geometry, a cube is an anchor point. So you've got a black cube that absorbs energy. That's an anchor in your system. And so what it's doing is it's draining your system, anchoring into you, and that energy is getting sent up to this planet Saturn where these nefarious entities are. So when you start to remove these black cubes out of somebody's energy field, they're like, whoa, I feel so much better. It's crazy how when you remove this unseen little black cube, and they can be small, they can be large, there can be one, there can be hundreds. People instantly feel better. And so I remove them by putting them in a containment field. And then I hand them off to the light side because I decided a long time ago it's beyond my pay grade what they do with them. But I always vet the light side to make sure I got the good guys before I hand them off something that could be harmful. And so those are the black cubes of Saturn. And these are just anchor points to siphon energy off of us. And it feeds this planet Saturn, which is a prison planet.
Okay. You know, I have seen like how, I guess you could say, possessed people are when you look at these Hajj videos. And like, this is probably why when you interact with Muslims, and I've had my fair share, Islam is the religion that I find is the easiest to pick holes in for its fallacy. It has no historicity. It has no archaeology to back it up. And it is a very emotional religion, more so than the other two, Christianity and Judaism, because when you engage with these people, there is this sort of like, when you look into their eyes, there's like no one's home, and they get into this rage. And when you get into a rage, that means your energy is being siphoned off because you don't have the ability to think, because when you get into that state, you're actually really being stressed. And brain scans show that when the body is in a stressed state, the body pulls blood from the brain and oxygen as well. So this is why, in theory, you're actually not as smart when you're in a stressed, angry, sad state, because the body is pulling all of the resources, blood and oxygen, to fuel the other parts of the body, because either fight, flight, or freeze. So it's for protection. And when you engage with these followers of this, and I'm going to say it here, death cult, satanic death cult, because I've got the receipts to prove it, so I can back up the things I say, they get into a state where it's like uncontrollable. And this is why they always want to get physically aggressive to you, right? Because the energy is being sucked, you know? So you're saying it goes to Saturn.
It goes to Saturn. They're loose machines, right? They're just these carbon-based loose machines, unfortunately. I don't know how much or what percentage of souls are in these people. I don't know. And not just... I think zero, because most of them sorry to interrupt you. Do you find there's a small percentage of them that will have cognitive dissonance where when you put points to them, it will make them think? But the emotion that they have to leave it far outweighs the ability to think critically, to say, no, this is not right. Yeah. And there's a lot of people out there that fall into that category, unfortunately. When we get into this cognitive dissonance aspect, this is a big part of the game. How much cognitive dissonance can we insert into humanity, right? Cognitive dissonance is what will destroy humanity if we allow it to be. So cognitive dissonance is that we cannot possibly believe this truth. Even though I've been given the receipts, as you say, of what the truth is, I still can't believe it. No matter what, I can't shift my line of thinking. When a person gets to that point, no matter what they do, they can't look at something objectively. Something else owns that soul. Something else owns that body, right? They have lost the will of free thinking. They have lost their soul sovereignty. They've given it away somewhere. And when people can't think, and when they can't have an intelligent argument, right, without getting violent, without getting angry, they don't own their souls anymore. They don't own what's in this body anymore. Something else does. And what is it? Okay, which leads me to my next question. Okay. Long before Islam, the same cube housed around 360 idols, and its chief god was Ubal, a name some trace back to Baal. What do you sense is really being venerated underneath the modern ritual? Baal, I believe, is the god of child sacrifice.
Correct.
And we are seeing this throughout. It's a pandemic of child sacrifice on this planet. And it's getting fed to that. I don't even want to call it a deity. I don't, because it, to me, a God source, a beneficial thing. This is a demonic figure. I've seen Baal several times in my work. It's not to be messed with. We have been, a number of years ago, before it was even a thing, I would find myself in these tunnels removing children. This is like 20 years ago, before anybody talked about it. I'm like, wow, man, am I going crazy? What was that about? Seriously. And I'm in these tunnels removing these children over and over and over and over. And like, I go to places, and then I mean, this is Baal energy right there. And that child energy is pure God source energy, even if they recycle those kids over and over and over. The adrenaline that they will produce is an exquisite form of food for them, unfortunately. And it's their addiction. And so, yes, Baal is a part of that. I'm going to call him satanic, even worse than Lucifer, satanic setting of that. And then you've got Moloch and some other deities that it's a real thing. We need to understand, and this is where cognitive dissonance happens. If I can't believe that child sacrifice exists, I'm going to just, bury my head in the sand and just forget about it. That's not helpful. It doesn't mean I have to cry over the waterfall for the children, but it means that if I have this knowledge, then I can live with this knowledge within me, and it makes me stronger, and it makes my energetic signature stronger on a collective consciousness level to be helpful. Even if it's just this much help, it's still helpful. Removing these souls from this loosh machine, this recycling. So we think that every baby is born heaven sent. That's not true. When they cross, when a soul dies and they get soul napped by these entities or other entities, they are now in charge of that soul's reincarnation cycle, and they can bring them back over and over. They can bring them back broken. In the higher realms, the concept is he restoreth my soul, right? This is why we go back home to the higher realms, to the heavens, to have our soul healed and restored. That does not happen in the lower astral or in the land of Baal. We have to cross them over. A large part of the work I do is crossing over and removing these structures. It's dangerous.
I can believe that.
It is very dangerous. I've almost been killed a few times, and I'm not exaggerating.
I believe you totally.
Yeah.
So the black cube isn't only in Mecca. It shows up in the box of the Tefillin, and the New Jerusalem is described as a perfect cube in Revelation. Same signals in three faiths. Or is it coincidence?
I don't think there's no such thing as coincidence. Yep, that's easy. No coincidence. They know
that the Jews, they put this stone, this cube on their forehead when they're praying,
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If people could think about what they're doing and maybe get rid of some of this historical mantra stuff and start thinking about what does it really mean, we can shift some things here.
Absolutely. Now, the angels told you almost 20 years ago that the world would soon become very dark and that people would need to know how to use them. And we are in that dark time chapter now?
Yeah, we are. This was 20 years ago. And I remember my in-laws had died within 6 months of each other. And then about a year later, my dad died. My in-laws were elderly. We knew they were going to die. It was like more okay. But when my dad died, it was like the sucker punch of my lifetime, because he was 61, he had pancreatic cancer, and he was gone 6 weeks later. It was awful. And what I had noticed, because our house is like this who's who in the spiritual zoo thing going on, my dad was always in the house as a ghost with us, but my in-laws never were. And so, and I'm kind of asking this question out loud, and I'm like, why is it that my in-laws are never here, but my dad's always here? And my dad was playing as a ghost child with one of my kids, and was telling one of my daughters, like, oh, I used to call your mom this nickname as a kid, which nobody knew about. And he would tell my kids about like my things about my childhood that nobody knew about. So I knew it was him. And I'm having this conversation. Why is it that my dad is here as a ghost and my in-laws aren't? And then the next thing I know, my father-in-law shows up with 2 sets of angels, one on each side of him. And my mother-in-law shows up with 2 sets of angels on each side of her. And they're outside. So we've got a backyard, a pool, a patio, and then the house. And they're under the patio. And I'm like looking at them thinking, well, this is kind of weird, but what's not weird anymore? And I said, why aren't you coming in? And the angel said, because you didn't invite us. And I'm like, wait, what? I can invite them to come in, and I can say, don't come in, right? That was like a big revelation. The dark side doesn't care, though, by the way. So I invited them in, and the angel started talking to me, and I was literally ordered to get paper and pen. And so I started writing down these angel messages. And this is about 20 years ago. And they said that, one, the world is going to become a very dark place, and that humanity needs to know how to use angels now more than ever. And they started talking about myths humanity was gifted by the dark side about angels. My problem isn't worthy of an angel's help, one. I need to save all of my little angel chits for the big ask, two. The angels are here, but I'm not allowed to ask for help, period. That was 3. And I was like, wow, okay. And they started telling me that humanity has been programmed to not use angels, and angels also earn karma, earn stature by the work they do, the help they offer humans. Angels are here to serve humanity. We are never alone. The easiest way to grow your spiritual team is to use the help of the angels. Everybody here has access to angels. Every human on this planet has access to angels, but we've been told we better not use them. There's that guilt factor. Oh, I don't want to, bother the angels, all that stuff. No, use them. The more you use your angels, the more you connect with your higher self and God and the divine. The more you use your angels, the bigger connections you have, the more spiritual protections you have. And, use the angels for the little things in life. If you need $10,000 by next week, don't go ask your mom and dad for hey, mom and dad, I need $10,000 next week. No, you need to have a plan, a program, a this or whatever. So start building your relationship with your angels. Build your relationship with your angels. Ask them for small things. Thank them. Send them gratitude. The best way to use an angel in my book is ask for a good parking spot. Okay? Just ask. Ask for all the mundane things, because what you're doing is you're practicing utilizing the angels. They cannot violate spiritual law. So if you're going in for a job interview, you can't tell the angels, make sure I get the job. You can ask the angels to help guide your words in the interview to make sure your words are heard clearly. That you can do. If you are a parent, you can ask the angels to protect your child at school. You can ask the angels to help your child with many things. A good night's sleep, perhaps, okay? If you're dealing with sleep paralysis or something like that with your child, Bring in a huge team of angels to remove whatever is harassing your child. A lot of doctors will say, well, sleep paralysis is normal. No, it's not normal for your child to be tortured. Don't buy into that. There's something else happening. So use the angels. So they were saying that the world is getting darker. We need to start using angels and ask them over and over and over. Ask them for words of wisdom. Ask them for advice. Ask them for a good sale on blue jeans or whatever. Okay. It doesn't matter, because as you're doing this, you're building the relationship. When you get what you need, you get the advice that you need or whatever it is, thank them. Thank them for the information and the help they've been giving you, because now you're building a relationship. It's no different than building a friendship. Friendships aren't one-sided, or the friendships that are of value are not one-sided. It's the same thing with the angels. And the angels were talking about basically there are so many dark chains that are binding humans. They have to be broken. And so to please get out and ask us, use us. You cannot have too many angels on your spiritual team. I mean, I have a lot of angels. I don't even know how many at this point I have on my team. I still vet them every time I work with them, and they know it. They know the drill. But my team keeps growing, and all of our spiritual teams ebb and flow throughout our life based on what our needs are, what our actions and deeds are as well. So use them, and don't be shy about it. Just know, you know what? I know that I need to use these angels for help, and this is what I got, and they're going to come, and it's going to take time to build that relationship. So don't expect your $10,000 to show up next week.
Okay, so I've got for the person then that's now sort of like stumbling upon spirituality and consciousness and stuff, or for a person that is religious and stuff like that, why would you go to angels when you can go to source or God? Because the reason why I ask that is, like, in a lot of the sort of like spiritual information, conscious information that's shared is all about connecting back to source. Mm-hmm. And once you connect back to source and your higher self, you'll be able to manifest and attract and all that kind of stuff. So does that go against that message, or is just that is like just one layer to it? Because I know that some people are going to come at me and say, yeah, but Todd, she's talking about, entities, and you should be trying to channel God and connect with God and stuff. So how do you respond to when people ask questions like that? They make statements like that?
It's a great question. First of all, angels are another layer to God. They are of God. There's an aspect of angels that are more, I'm going to say, relatable to humanity, in the sense that they help us to connect to God. When you build an army, your army can be more than God. It can be the angels. It can be all these other beings in the higher realms. You always go back to God, though. Everything that is worth having, learning, etc., comes from God, God's source energy, period. But there's many layers, there's many entities. And when I'm working on removing these negative entities, they don't give a crap about spiritual law. They don't care. So we need the tools to get them off our back. Angels are one of those tools, by the way. And so we can call in God, we can call in the angels, we can call in Yeshua, all of that, absolutely. But there's different resources for different jobs at the same time. And so we can kind of think about it that way. But I utilize all of them. I work directly with God all the time. I work with Yeshua, I work with Mary, I work with Kuan Yin. It just depends on the job.
Okay. All right. Understood. So let's round out talking about reclaiming sovereignty and the path to your highest self. So if a person's energy really is being routed to that cube without their consent, what is the very first move to take it back?
You have to literally cut the cord that attaches you to it, because it's a siphon. And then ask your angels, ask God to remove that cube from you. And then what are you doing Are you doing something in this life to allow another one to come back in? Is there a crack in your foundation that you have not yet identified? That's a possibility too. One of the easiest ways these dark entities can come in at us, I'm not going to win a popularity contest with this comment. People who are easily persuaded, think teenage boys, for example, and that play video games, violent video games, games where you're murdering constantly on the video games. And you've got cracks in your foundation, you're mentally weak, you're not strong. This invites these entities into the home. This is just one way to do it. Another way, you could use that little Ouija board I was talking about too. There's many ways. So what are the holes in the foundation? Is there an addiction issue? Even if the addiction is sugar, I mean, that can be something too. Doesn't mean we can't enjoy life, don't get me wrong, but where are these holes? Is there a family pattern that needs to be healed? Is there soul work that needs to happen? Is there self-sabotage work that needs to be dealt with? Shadow work. So there's all kinds of things, but these little buggers, they don't care. They're just looking for their next meal ticket, and I'm not going to let them be my meal ticket.
Absolutely. So you teach that the most important thing a person can cultivate is soul health. For someone hearing that phrase for the first time, what actually is a healthy soul?
Yeah. All right. So this is my little split. We talk about our physical health, right? Our mental health, our emotional health, our financial health. The end of the day, our soul health is paramount. Our soul health means that the energy that animates this body is my soul. Christ called it life everlasting, right? Not death everlasting. So when we leave these bodies, I want to have the healthiest soul possible. A healthy soul means that I have the ability to free think. I have the ability to make decisions with wisdom and discernment. And I can operate for the greater good, operate and work for God. That's the sign of a healthy soul. It doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean we don't fall down and stumble. But when we get back up, it's a little bit easier when we have a healthier soul. So it's all about soul health. It's not about our financial assets and all those things. Although in the 3D world, we need, food on the table and roofs over our head and all that stuff too. Don't get me wrong. But it's all a balance. And so when you have a soul that's balanced and healthy, that's a strong soul. And when I leave this body, I want to have the healthiest soul possible. Period.
Okay. So let's get you out on this one. When someone has done the work, cleared what was never theirs, healed the soul, reclaimed their free will, what do they actually become on the other side?
Back to freedom, right? So when we do this work, and a lot of the work I'll do with clients is we look at family patterns, right? And is there entities puppeting the family line? Are there sabotage? There's a reason why, rape and physical abuse and things like that are patterns in families, right? Because it's what's done, that's what's normal. So when we kind of look at these elements, we can start to free ourselves. Breaking a family pattern is probably the hardest spiritual thing we can do. Breaking the family pattern, the negative family pattern, is the most spiritual thing we can do. Because this liberates, period.
Yeah, and I think they call it spiritual epigenetics or epigenetics as well.
Yeah.
And, it's like a generational curse or generational trauma that you need to break. And I do concur, because I think that every single person has a generational trauma in their lineage to break, whether it's paternal or maternal or maybe even both. You know?
Right. Yeah.
And if you have both, you have double whammy,
Oh, yeah. Most people, I think, have both to a certain degree. There are no family lines out there that are just purely clean. Everybody's got junk. And it's just, don't get tangled up in it.
Absolutely. Laura, this was an awesome conversation. You took us on an absolute journey, and I was very excited to talk to you, Dave, when I was reading up about you, and I was like, wow, there's just so much information about you, you know? So please tell the lovely folks at the Conscious Man 7 where they can find you, the name of your book, your website, your socials, if you have a YouTube channel, if you do coaching, and all of that good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you. So my website is my name, lauravantyne.com. And I'm on all the socials under Laura Van Tyne. So, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that, all under Laura Van Tyne. And I do have a few books out there. I've got, my first book was Soul Tribe, Navigating the Spiritual War, which is more of a handbook. If you're having some issues, it can help you. I wrote it so that you could read it on an airplane kind of thing and pick and choose what you need. Then I have the Teacher to Exorcist and then the Spiritual War book. The Teacher to Exorcist is actually a lot of my personal stories and what I learned, how I learned, and backing it up with some data points. Because in this intangible or non-tangible world, getting data points is critical. And then the third book is basically every week for the past almost 3 years, which is crazy, I write a weekly blog. And so I've been having people ask me to turn my blogs into a book because they would prefer to have a book. So that was that book. And when I work with people, I want you to keep your power, which means you and I work as a team. And I teach you how to remote view. And if people say, well, I don't know how, it's like, it's okay. We got this. So you can start to see and sense what is impacting you on a soul level. And then you get to participate and watch the removal of it. If it's a reptilian, if it's heavy energy, whatever it is. So you get to see it. I've got a very specific method that I use to help people do this and see this. So thank you for asking. Yeah.
All right. And guys, everything associated to Laura, all links to Laura will be in the description of this podcast. And as Laura was just saying a few minutes ago, soul health is the thing that matters. And in order to get soul health, guys, you need to get physical health because you can't get soul health without physical health. So guys, I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. So if you're interested in leveling up in other areas of your life, you want to have soul health as well, and you want to grow mentally, physically, and spiritually, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave on Facebook. Send me a message. Let's have a chat and let's see if you're a good fit for the Compound Body Training Army. If you are on a spiritual journey and you would like to remove some fears and traumas, and or you would like to start a physical spiritual journey, I can help you to get some magic mushrooms. So send me a message on my Instagram or Facebook at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave. Send me a message. Let's have a chat and let's see if I can help you to get some magic mushrooms because they also help with PTSD and CPTSD. And they also help rewire the brain, build new neurons and neural networks and neural pathways in the brain. And it's basically a brain medicine. So if you're struggling out there, don't hesitate. Hit me up on my socials. If you listen to this podcast and you on one of the podcast platforms and you simply don't like the ads that you get, you can consider being a member of our Patreon or Locals community. You get early access to all podcasts. You'll get some exclusive content. You get direct access to me because I get a ton of messages on social media and I reply to those messages there first, like I do with my coaching clients. So if you would like to support this podcast, help us out with things like editing, doing research to get other great guests like Laura, link to the Patreon or Locals community will be in the description of this podcast. And for a few bucks a month, few coffees, teas, lattes, you can become part of the Conscious Man 7 community. If you also would like to support this podcast and you would like to represent that you are part of the Conscious Man family, I have some merch in the Amazon store, Todd and Me. We've got some cool tank tops, hoodies, shirts, and sweats. So link to the Amazon store, Todd and Me, and also to all of our collection of merch will be in the description of this podcast. And today I find it fitting that I have on the shirt, Truth Isn't Learned, Truth is Realized. So if you would like to get yourself a cool looking shirt, be part of the Conscious Man 7 family, and support this podcast at the same time, link to the Todd and Me store will be in the description of this podcast. And don't forget, guys, to support our sponsor, Dikembo, at dikembo.com. Go over there, get yourself some cool organic pyramids, tower busters, and our jewelry. Combat the nasty EMF waves that we're bombarded with. And Laura said that we're bombarded with all these waves as well, and they have some adverse effects on human beings. So link to dikembo.com will be in the description of this podcast. Use coupon code CM7 at the checkout to get 10% off your order. Laura, thank you so much for being a guest today on the Conscious Man 7 podcast. This was an extraordinary conversation, and I think we are going to have to speak again because there's more stuff that I would like to get into there. But, I think we've covered enough for our audience today.
Love that, though. Thank you so much for having me. I had a ball, so thank you.
You're very welcome. Friends, if this gave you a better lens on what's really running the show behind the scenes, here's how you can help it travel. Like this show so that the algorithm pushes it to someone who needs it. And drop me a comment. When Laura talked about the things we call our personality not even being ours, did it do something or click something in you? Tell me below. Share this with one person in your world who's been fighting the same wall over and over and can't work out why. Everything Laura will be in the description of this podcast. To all the Conscious Man 7 family around the world, thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for supporting the mission, and thank you for choosing to look inside of you to heal as it creates a ripple effect in the world. This was another episode of the Conscious Man 7 podcast, the place where we go beyond the veil in search of the truths that they hide from you to help you reclaim your power, to help you heal the body and mind in order to step into the truest version of yourself. You are the help that you've been looking for. So remember, folks, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep being the change you want to see. Speak to you soon. Cheers and namaste.